Hi guys, here to do another reaction to find out what people are saying about epilepsy/seizures out there in the internet/YouTube world. So I found a video called How Video Games Can Cause Seizures. Since both my kids play video games nonstop, I don't think they're gonna have seizures, but if I'm watching them, curious to see what might happen. So let's check this one out.
Video games get a bad rap, but can they actually cause seizures?
Girl, they're trying to give me one now.
Hello everyone, Crystal, your friendly neuroscientist here for D News to talk video games and epilepsy. Normally, the activity in your brain is a lot of neurons firing at different times. The activity of these neurons are highly regulated, and there are inhibitory systems in place to make sure they don't fire out of control. Right now, many of your brain regions are active processing this stimulating video, but they are all working independently of each other. In some cases, though, a glitch can occur and the activity syncs up. When this happens, it can trigger what we know as a seizure. Seizures are often described as a storm of concerted brain activity, with all circuits firing in rhythm together. There are many different types of seizures, and not all lead to a diagnosis of epilepsy. Epilepsy is a disorder characterized by a specific form of recurring seizure, a reduced seizure threshold, and it usually requires an EEG or neuroimaging for diagnosis. It might come as a surprise, but over the course of a lifetime, 4% of our population will experience epilepsy, and it's the fourth most common neurological disorder, on par with dementia and stroke. What does this have to do with video games? Well, somehow it seems that certain types of repetitive sensory stimuli can trigger a seizure.
Okay, girl, they are trying to give me a seizure right now with all these lights. They've had quite a few segments with flashing lights. Okay, no, I'm not that sensitive, but clearly I'm gonna have to put a trigger warning at the title of this video. Okay, so now it's interesting what she's already said, is that is the fourth most common neurological things, so stroke and dementia are clearly all neurological problems, issues that people have, but I think this is the least, at least one of the least talked about neurological issues, and not much is known about it, and there's no cure that we've all realized. But yeah, so as she said, right now, as anybody's watching this, all kinds of electrical brain activities going off right now. And just for epilepsy people, occasionally it'll all go wrong. It'll all go haywire. So let's see what she says can happen with video games.
Seizure. And pulsing light, like the flashes from a computer or television screen, can fit the bill. About 3% of people with epilepsy, and some individuals without, experience photosensitive seizures in response to flashing light. These types of seizures are more common in children and adolescents, the portion of the population for whom video games are the greatest concern. Many people don't know that they are sensitive to flickering lights until they experience a seizure, and the factors that can trigger a photosensitive seizure are how quickly the light flashes, the intensity of the flashing light, the distance between the viewer and the light source, and the color or wavelength of the light.
See, now that's what's interesting, because if any of y'all have had the EEG test, even if it's the 1 hour or the 3-day or the 5-day, I've had all three of those, where they do the light flashing test, where they say how quickly the light flashes, the intensity, the distance between. So they have almost all of those factors when they do that test. I know mine was 3 minutes long, and it would have 10 seconds in between the different light flashes. Some were super, super fast, some were slower, some were brighter than others. I don't think it had different colors. It was all just a bright white light, but none of those triggered for me. I think the lights just bother me. They bother my eyes, they might make me a little dizzy. They haven't given me a seizure yet, fingers crossed. But yeah, so it's interesting how they've realized, different ways that that lights can affect you. That is not just a flashing light. It can be how it flashes or the intensity. So there's so many different ways. So let's see how video games play into that.
any repetitive visual stimuli can trigger the seizure. Video games are seen as the frequent culprits, but the incidence of these seizure events has been on the rise since the advent of television in the 1950s. In the 90s, there was a famous Japanese incident in which over 600 children experienced seizures and were hospitalized after watching a Saturday morning Pokemon cartoon. And in the UK, a noodle commercial that triggered seizures led to increased regulations for broadcast television. Here in the US,
what is this noodle cartoon? Or what is this noodle commercial? I'm going to try and look that up, and I'm going to post it if I can find it. And Pokemon, okay, I can picture that because my kid plays with all the Pokemon cards, Pokemon cartoons, and there's lots of flashing in there. But noodle commercial. Interesting.
Seizure warnings are becoming more and more common, but we have yet to enact the regulatory approaches taken by the UK and Japan. It is important to note that isolated seizures caused by distinct visual triggers are not enough for an epilepsy diagnosis. So to say that video games cause epilepsy is a bit misleading. But they can cause seizures, and these episodes can occur when they are least expected and are not without consequence. Repeated seizure activity can lead to cognitive impairment, behavioral abnormalities, and even brain damage. So the next time you sit down at a computer or television screen, just know that you might be putting your brain at risk for much more than just a good time.
Okay, so that's interesting. She did differentiate between it won't necessarily cause epilepsy, but will cause seizures. So not one and the same, clearly. So that is important. If your child has a seizure from a video game, it is not necessarily epilepsy. It could just be their mind is overloaded with the crazy lights happening. So that is a good distinction that she made.
For other new research on how video games affect the brain, check out this recent video from Trace.
These researchers think that the action video game players are underdeveloping their striatum to such a degree that it might affect them throughout their lives. They may even develop a neurological disorder because of this.
Is there anything else you're curious about that you want us to cover on the show?
Alright guys, so that was how video games may trigger seizures. What'd you think? Thought that was interesting. And yeah, I can see how the light flashing would definitely set that off, especially in children and young adults, because that's usually who's playing video games. Although, definitely some adults play video games. Still in there. Let me know what you guys think. Have any of your kids or have you experienced difficulty with certain video games? Have you found certain ones are more troubling than others? I'd be curious to know. Links to the original video will be down below, and please like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.